Did you change the topic?
No, I don't think so. I believe we're live right now, behind the scenes. Welcome. It's kind of a slow Monday for me. I forgot to schedule it, so nothing's posted on Facebook. Hopefully people who check in will see that we're going live right now. And I think we're a little unclear exactly what our topic is. We may have some shifting in it, but the idea is those moments when you have this real strong battle, internal battle of like wanting to say no, but not being quite so clear that it's still warranted. So they do get older, and some things that we said no to when they were younger kind of no longer need to be a no. Those transitions for me were always horrible. Like I think some people are so excited to see their kids hit those moments, those turning moments, like where, yes, today's the day. And I was always like, all right, let's think of all the things that are going to go wrong. Not healthy. I recognize not healthy at all. And I did it most with my firstborn. But so Emily was excited to get onto this topic. So we're going to start with Emily today.
Hi, everybody. So yeah, we moved cross country when my oldest was 13. So he was at a time when he wanted lots of new freedom. He did not want us to embarrass him by meeting any of his new friends or talking to their parents. And we were feeling extremely unmoored because we had left a neighborhood where we knew everybody since babies, and came to a place where we knew nobody, and it was a much bigger city, and things were different. And I think the other aspect of it was like how I was raised in a much more, I'm an only child, so there was no older sibling to kind of forge the way. And my parents were pretty much a no on a lot of the kind of what I would say now are normal teenage social things. So it really came up with us with social things and just figuring out expectations. And so I think the first one was probably like the dances. Like here, the tradition is to go out to either In-N-Out or IHOP or something like that after the dance. And so and there's like an 8th grade formal dance, and then there's the high school has a lot more dances than my high school had, and like we just had homecoming for my younger daughter now. So with my older son, it was a big battle. Like, can I go out? Can I be out after to midnight or even later? And I wasn't out until 2:00 in the morning until I was probably in college, except for maybe prom. But it was just a different tradition. So we had a lot of conversation about my job is going to be to say no. You're always going to want more freedom than I'm comfortable with, and we're going to have to adjust to each other and keep talking and try not to get defensive and both be set in our ways and then kind of figure out. So I think the solution in that first instance was talking to just a couple of moms that I had gotten to know by that point, and then them saying, oh, this is just what everyone, this is the norm here. They always do this. And, and maybe being the one like, you can go, but I'm going to be the one to pick up your group of friends, and I'll pick up 6 friends if you want, but I'm going to be the one to pick you up. And seeing that kind of thing, like, okay, you're going to go from someone's house to the dance all in Ubers, but when it comes to going somewhere after the dance, I'm going to drive you so that I can see that you're actually going where you say you're going, or check it out and see what it looks like. I would say I plug the article, Jessica, if you can pull it up. It's that Stoplight. It's one of my favorite articles I've ever read in the magazine. It really helped me kind of frame these things and just see that it was so developmentally normal for kids to be wanting these things. And it was actually, kind of doing them a disservice sometimes and not letting them learn how to navigate making their own choices in some of these ways before they left home. I'll go to Sharon.
Okay, I hear all of this and I'm feeling it. I have two who are teenagers now and one who's coming up on it. And I guess what I want to share is kind of a dilemma, and maybe somebody has some advice on this because my oldest is a boy and my other two are girls. And I really don't want to have different rules for my boy and my girls. It just seems unfair. It seems sexist. But at the same time, I feel like when they're going to want to start doing some of the same things as my son, I'm going to be more worried. Like I have let him walk home from friends' houses after dark, at 10 o'clock at night. Maybe he's half a mile, 3/4 a mile away on a summer night. It's totally, I think it's safe. The worst that could happen is, somebody says, give me your phone or something. But am I going to let my teenage daughters do the same thing? And I feel like I'm going to be really nervous about that and not want to let them do that. And by the same token, like, the parties are starting to happen and I'm the parent who calls or texts the other parent and makes sure that they're going to keep an eye on things. But even with that, I feel like, if I trust my kid to make good choices, are they in danger? Probably not if they're my son, but I'm less sure about that for my daughter. So I don't know. I guess I'm looking for help on this without being unfair to my daughters by having different rules for daughters and sons. So I'm just going to leave that dilemma out there and I'm going to pass it to Kamira.
Good morning. Okay, so I'm going to start with your dilemma, Sharon. We have all boys, but I've tried really hard to impress upon them that the world is not a safe place for girls, no matter whether you're a girl or a young woman or an older woman, and that they have to, in their daily activities, heed that it's not being sexist, but that it is very unfair, but it is not safe. So when you're with your friends who are females, make sure that they get to wherever they're supposed to be. When you guys separate, if you have to escort them, even though you're not escorting your guy friend or something, and it's not being sexist, it's really a matter of physical safety for them. And what you know about her and what you know about yourself doesn't matter to a stranger. So I feel you. It's a very difficult place to be, but the reality is the world is just less safe for, if everything else is even, for your girl child than it is for your boy child. So I understand that. And your daughters are going to hate it. They're just going to hate it. There's no way around it. Our thing. So my guys are pros at getting to things for which I am not ready. They are just pros of coming up with things and I am not ready. And so the mantra in our house is, and they'll mouth it, you may be ready, but I'm not ready. Help get me ready. So they know by a certain age that they have to come not just with what they want to do, but with all these little detailed points that'll make me comfortable with whatever it is. Something that Emily brought up was a big thing with us. Ride shares alone, putting your kid in a ride share alone. I mean, first it was with other kids, but then alone to get somewhere. And usually, I know for our family, and I think for other families I've talked to, it's usually when you have no other option. So you're going to do it. And I know some of the companies have the app so that you can follow them on it. And we've all seen the parents, because I've been the parent following them on the app. You put them in the car and you call the person who's on the other end. Okay, the child's in the car. Call me when they get out the car, and you're watching the car on the app. And then there comes a time where you put them in the car and you don't look, and the app pops up and says so-and-so's arrived, and you're like, oh yeah. I think we all get there. Some of you get there faster than I do because I'm really, really slow. I'm gonna go down to Jen.
Thanks, Kamira. So here's the thing that I was never ready for, and I might still not be ready for, but I know it's a thing. Co-ed sleepovers. I don't know when that became a thing. And I will back up just a little bit and say that when I was a senior in high school, my group of friends, which is guys and girls, and we were all, for the most part, platonic. You had the odd, one-off that it fizzled quickly and you realized better as friends. But we approached all of our parents and said, as our senior celebration, we want to do a camping trip together. And we came prepared. Like Kamira said, we were ready. We were ready to approach it and say, here's what we're doing. Here's why we think it's fine. And here's how we're going to be safe. And here's our plan. And to my undying shock to this day, my mom said, okay, sounds good. And I was floored, absolutely floored. Now, I am the fifth kid. By then, perhaps we had worn off some of the rough edges. But even having had that experience myself, I wasn't really prepared for it when, one of my kids said, oh, so-and-so is having people over. We're going to watch a movie and then we're just going to stay the night. And I was like, well, let's back that up a little bit. I need to hear a little bit more about this. And the funny thing was, as we talked through it, I realized that my child also wasn't really ready for it. And she was actually happy for me to be the stoplight and say, maybe not. I know, I'm willing to come pick you up really late, but I'm just not comfortable with the whole overnight thing. And that's what ended up being kind of the happy medium for us. So I know this is a thing, and I think we might even have an article about it. I don't know, but I'm very interested to hear how other people have navigated the co-ed sleepover. And it does seem like it often happens around prom too. We're gonna have a bunch of people over, and what are the go, no go? I need a handbook because I never really figured it out. So that's the one I'm gonna leave that one dangling for somebody else to pick up. Maybe Echo would like to talk about it or not.
Echo, before we get to you, let's just remind everybody who's listening to please jump in with your suggestions for Sharon and Jen. And also, if you have your own story to add, and we'd love to share that with everybody. Back at you, Echo.
Okay, so Jen, your question about the co-ed sleepover, I love that one because that one was big in my family with my oldest. And my response was always like, that's a great idea. Your father and I will be paying thousands of dollars in a couple of years for you to go away and do co-ed sleepovers called college. Because one of my things is, I know it's not the best parenting tool, but sarcasm was really big at my house. So that's what I said. We will be spending thousands. So you can just wait. So for some of the hard decisions, and Mindy was part of this a lot with me, is crowdsourcing. Mindy and I have children. Our oldest were in the same group, and so a lot of times when a lot of those hard things, going to the mall, going to the movies, whatever, didn't always take place by themselves. It took place in a group, and so it was great to have other moms that you could talk about it and decide almost like as a group that we're going to let you do this as a group. And so everyone had buy-in. I mean, there were a lot of texting and phone conversations that happened before we all said yes, but it was actually easier to make the decision. Maybe it's the chicken way out, but then you're not the only mother saying yes, you're not the only mother saying no, you're doing it collectively. And I found that many times reaching out to other parents, what they were doing to find out, hey, are we doing this? Is everybody in on this together? And then a collective buy-in. So that's what helped a lot with my kids. So on that, I'm going to pass it up to Mindy.
Thanks, Eka. And absolutely, I found that so helpful because there's so many times as parents of teenagers, we don't know, especially our oldest. And for Eka and I, it was both our oldest kids. So huge difference in the decision making. The one
Mindy,
thing that I always had trouble with was the first time I let my kids, sort of as we were talking the Uber, get in a car with somebody else. Like I remember my oldest, as he became a freshman in high school, I just assumed they all took the bus. But apparently in our town, it was not cool to take the bus as a freshman. So my neighbor, who was they had two kids. One was a year older than my son. The other was 2 years older. They drove, oh no, we'll come, we'll pick them up. And I don't know, that was just really hard to see him as a freshman in high school, get in another car and go off with two kids. So, and I think that went down the line. Even these days with my kids being older, I think that's like, oh, there's so much that can happen. My greatest fear is, a car accident. So that's what I struggle with is that responsibility. And certainly my kids are all old enough now, but I don't know, it just have them A, get in the car with another kid, and then B, be the kid driving, always scares me. And just, I agree with Eka also 100%. Jen, the co-ed sleepovers, same thing. College, there you go. It's all yours, as Eka said, thousands and thousands of dollars, all yours. To us, that was an very easy decision. Although my youngest of 3 did do a co-ed sleepover at prom. So there you go. I guess things change.
Okay, so Mindy, before you jump in, we're going to share Ivoni. I hope I'm saying your name right. This was it's coming up now. I think this was in response to Eka having this nice plan to come up with a game plan with the whole group. But it is the worst when your kids tell you that you're the only one saying no. But one of the things I found was I was never the only mom saying no. So maybe you've done your homework and you in fact are, but that was never the case for me. That the you're the only mom was a real power play for my kids. And I don't know if anyone else, there's some nods. Okay, so now we are on, well, anyway, Ivoni, good luck to you. And maybe you can find at least one other parent who is on your team. Okay, Jess.
I don't know why it just took me so long to find the unmute button. Yeah, so I, as the most recent teenager, I think, in this group, the only story I can think of is being 18 and, knowing everything, being an adult now, and just, on my weekly call to my mother, saying like, oh yeah, so me and my friend are going to see a concert in Boston in a couple of months. And mom being like, no, you're not. And, in my brain, it had been more of a like, oh yeah, I'm just going to tell my mom about this fun thing I'm doing. It didn't it didn't occur to me that I had several, logistical problems with my plan, such as not having a credit card and not really having much of a plan in lieu of not having a credit card. And like, it wasn't so much a like asking permission thing, because, I was 18. I could technically do whatever I wanted, but I didn't exactly have the money or the logic to safely execute this plan. So I am, on the one hand, grateful for my mother to be like, no, that's not happening. I'm not going to let you drive cross country. And on the bright side, I think a year later, the thing that I wanted to see in Boston came to Cleveland. So then it was more of a like, oh yeah, an hour drive versus, I don't know, 10 hours. But yeah, I don't know. I guess 18-year-olds think they know everything.
Okay, Jessica, we need to know what concert it was.
Okay, it's more of a nerdy thing, so I'm like, I don't know if I should say it. So it was, okay, it wasn't technically a concert. It was a live show for Welcome to Night Vale, a podcast that I used to listen to.
My kids loved that too, and they probably would have done the same thing. I think that's a really common thing you hit on, is the idea versus execution. They're good at having big plans, but not necessarily the execution.
Yeah, and like I knew all of the big picture stuff. We knew what car we were gonna take. We knew what car we were gonna take. That was probably about the extent of what we thought we needed to plan.
As a mom, I would say a lot of times it's good to just not say no so fast, because sometimes it just happens naturally. And if you can like kind of listen and with reserve judgment, then it can fizzle out on its own without you having to be the bad guy. But that one is very hard for me to bite my tongue in that way.
I want to say that collectively we are the smartest parent. Okay, so
we have a nice comment from Lori. Make sure we show.
Ivoni, I just want to say to you that I do recall one time when there was a party at someone's house, and I knew the parents were out of the country, and it was a rough one, but I did in fact stand my ground. And I was thinking about it the other day. I have to check in with my daughter to see whether she in fact followed my rules, because that's the funny part of saying no. You find out later that no was not no. And then in fact, they did go. They just did it without you knowing. So, but yes, I do feel your pain. I was there. I remember that. Okay, Lori. Hi, Lori. We love seeing you. Yeah, this is a big one. I guess I would want to know also your son's college. I think he just started college, right? And his freshman dorm went co-ed, and the parents were not notified. And guess what? Her son loves it, and this mom has come a long way. Well, good for you. It's, I guess, a welcome to having a college age kid where it is not information that you are always privy to. Even though it does feel like you're paying the bill, you have the right to know. But it doesn't really always work that way. Okay, so my story, any story I came up with was already told. So I'm going to latch on to Emily's because we in the same town moved one kid in high school. Our third kid was the first one to switch schools, went to the public school, played on the lacrosse team, and I didn't really know anyone there. And I already had like my world in existence. So while Emily moved and had to make a new group of friends, I didn't need to. So I'd go watch these games and I kind of was off to the side. I almost felt like a middle school. I didn't quite know how to break in to the cool kids. But prom was coming up and the old school didn't have a prom. And so I just made this, what felt like a brave thing. I just said, hey, everyone, what are the rules around prom? And they said, what do you mean? And it was like really fascinating because my circle of friends prior to moving into this new space, we had rules. We had a lot of rules. Now, again, we found out later that not all rules were followed, but here the parents just understood that this is how it went. They were out all night. It ended with breakfast, and you kind of didn't weigh in. I really didn't like it at all. I still don't really like it at all. Too young, not okay. But I wanted to get into the cool group at that lacrosse game, and my kid is trying to find her place in this new school. And so I went against my internal judgment and said, okay, have fun. And I don't know what ended up happening. That has not been revealed in a game of two truths and a lie, or is the other way. We have found out, like, you might want to play it. Found out really a lot of things I did not want to know. Yeah, Jen's shaking her head no.
Still don't want to know. Too soon.
Yeah.
Can I say something about the co-ed sleepover? So I have boy-girl twins. They're freshmen in high school now. So this is something I'm struggling with. It's never been an issue. We have friends from childhood who are kind of like members of our family. And, it's like two families with both 3 kids and 4 boys and 2 girls all together. And so, I mean, they've always, shared a bunk room and thrown sleeping bags on the floor, and it doesn't matter, that they're teenagers and stuff. And that family grouping, I mean, it's like cousins. It doesn't stress me out at all. But just this fall, I have been wondering, okay, so how do we do this now? And then there's like another family in the neighborhood that has a daughter who's a sophomore in high school and a son who's a freshman. And my daughter and a friend just were like, well, we want to spend the night at their house. And, I don't know. I mean, it's just a different thing. It's like sort of co-ed. You don't want to be reading too much into situations and not giving kids the benefit of the doubt. But I also don't know all the dynamics of like, what kids have crushes on what kids. And if like that, the 9th grade, they say, oh, we're spending the night with the 10th grade sister, but I know that the 9th grade brother also has 6 friends over that night who are boys in the same grade. It's interesting because I've always been very much like, well, my twins can both have a sleepover on the same night. I'm not going to say, no, if you have a sleepover, then you can't have a sleepover. But now they're a little older. And so I don't know if that, I just feel like I'm a little unsettled about that. And
Emily,
Sharon,
there's a thread in the Facebook group. There's a thread about same-sex couples.
yes.
And Mom is asking, like, do you let sleepovers in that situation? But it's all the same question underneath it.
Yes.
I mean,
and we
it's
have an
entirely-
article about that too. And the article I was talking about before is called Asking and Giving Permission When Teenagers Act Without Your Okay. So that
I found it. Do you want to put it in the notes? Okay, I'm going to pass to Mindy.
I just want to say, and again, the title was well deserved. I was known as the sleepover ogre when my kids were in high school. But I think a really easy solution, and I felt this strongly, I had all boys, was after ninth grade, when you come to ninth grade, no sleepovers, because nothing good, whether I didn't trust or I was, nothing good happens, I feel, at sleepovers. And I felt I had no control. And in ninth and 10th grade, I wanted some sense of control. So in my house, same sex, different sex, didn't matter. Of course, until my youngest was going to prom, and then everything else blew up. But my husband and I said, no sleepovers. Nothing good happens after midnight, be home. And that just solved it all. And you know what? My kids survived. They went to college. They're healthy. They're happy. So it was an easy out for us. And there you go. Sleepover ogre.
Well, and also even, Mindy was probably alone in that camp, and she said, I don't care what all the other kids are doing. So Mindy is our role model for that. I think, Kamira, you had something to say. Sorry, my mute was going. No?
Oh, the sleep. We just had the co-ed sleepover. My son literally came in. He has a birthday this week, and he's having people over. We often have a lot of young men in our basement, but his group also has a couple of young ladies, and one of them is coming. But he presented it to me with, I would also like to have so-and-so come. She would be upstairs while we're all downstairs. She knows it, and we've told her father that, and her father is okay with it. I mean, he laid it all out. There was no room for me to object. There was nothing to add. And I just kind of went, okay. We've also had, I don't know if you guys have had this, but we've had one of our sons have a girlfriend who was already in college while he was still in high school. And she was in college in the area. So then her coming over on the weekends and me not wanting her to drive back late at night on the country road. So then we had to do a whole thing with her staying and her parents knowing she was staying. And it would be like once or twice a month that this happened. I was never comfortable with it. I tried to be, but I was never comfortable with it.
All right. Well, I am going to remember. This is so exciting. First time. Tomorrow, I am taking Kamira's spot. I am interviewing Kristen Carruthers, and it's at 10 o'clock in the morning. And the title is High Conflict Co-Parenting. So it can be an ex-partner, an ex-spouse. But this is one of the things that Kristen Carruthers is doing a lot right now, working with families and parents who are trying to negotiate either by court order or by desire a better co-parenting situation when there is high conflict. And I think, anyone else have anything to add? Oh, you know what I was thinking? I want to find somebody who said yes to the co-ed sleepovers. Because I think, there seems to be this like thread of no's, and everyone has their own reasons. And, some are religious based and some are just uncomfortable with the whole thing. But somewhere in this story is a parent or more than one who has said yes. So if it's you, we'd love to hear from you. Okay, so we have two comments we'll end with. Ivoni says, I also survived in my days, so I tell them my story and own struggles and how later on you understand the reasoning behind it. That's a good one. Thanks for sharing that. And Lori weighs in on the sleepovers. We always had sleepovers on Friday the 13th for many years, elementary through senior year of high school. We are the sleepover house. Yay, Lori. Started out mixed in elementary, but naturally went to all boys in middle school. No trouble and lots of fun. All right, that's a great note to end on. Thanks everybody for being here with us. Thanks Lori and Ivoni for joining us in the conversation. Have a good week.